Welcome, everyone, to Pointed in the Right Direction book. Today, we have Tom Wilkinson with NeuroNova on. And a couple weeks ago, I was at a health summit conference and we met. They have a very cool product that they're bringing to the market right now. And, you know, within our world, um, anxiety, depression is a big part, and their product, NeuroNova, is something that helps individuals overcome those challenges. So, with that, I am just going to turn to Tom, let him describe their product and how it came about, and give us a little history. Is
Okay.
he a book nerd, an engineer, or brain individual? So, with that, welcome, Tom.
Well, Jeff, thanks for having me on the show. Really been great to get to know you.
Yeah.
And I met actually a lot of people at that conference, and you're definitely one of those people that stood out as just a genuine person that's just trying to make everyone's life better. And what's great about, setbacks in life is what I love to see, at least, are the people that take the super painful things that have happened to them and use that as momentum to make the world a better place. And that's kind of a nice segue into the product that we've put together. But just kind of a history lesson on how we got started in this. This was almost 14 years ago. Um, we lost my older brother to an overdose on methadone, and actually, it's probably helpful to kind of take it a little bit further back. I grew up in a home where my dad was dysregulated and was physically abusive, and it was just kind of a tough upbringing. And my older brother was our protector from all that, and took all that poison in and tried to shield, his younger brothers and sisters and my mom from it. And it's unfortunate, but his way of dealing with that pain was through drugs and alcohol. And you know, you can't blame people for that. I mean, if I had gone through what he went through, I'd be doing gnarly drugs. You know what I mean? And I think, for many people out there, or most people out there that are, struggling with a substance abuse problem, um, they went through some really tough stuff. But I'm convinced if this product existed, back when my brother was around, he would still be here. But essentially, one of the scientists that discovered this product, and I'm not the scientist behind this, I'm not the brain behind this. Um, he had a brother go through the same type of problem, went through addiction recovery. And as you know, when somebody goes in addiction recovery, their brain's dopamine levels plummet and they go through withdrawals, and it's very painful. And so they're given methadone to help come off of those withdrawals. But the problem with that is you're giving somebody with a substance abuse problem another substance, and typically they become dependent on that new substance. And so same thing happened to the scientist's brother. He lost him. The difference between him and I is I didn't have the wherewithal of like, how do we solve this problem? But where I come into this is I love business and I'm great at business and commercializing technologies. He goes on, so for the last 8 years, been doing studies on small mammals and rodents and all these different things on how to naturally stimulate dopamine in the brain. And he discovered that in our spine, deep in our spine, there's these nerve endings called mechanoreceptors that are really sensitive to an 80 hertz wave. The trouble with an 80 hertz wave is very, very fast. And in order to get enough of displacement so it goes deep enough in the spine, we had to invent a whole new methodology, which we published in a paper in 2019. Um, but eventually we figured that out, and then we went through our phase 1 clinical trials. And what we discovered was not only was this fantastic for helping people come off of withdrawals, it was even better with just managing generalized anxiety, PTSD, OCD, insomnia, pain management, and even Parkinson's. And so it was really exciting. And before I went all in on this product, I wanted to test it on myself. So, and now I'm being long-winded, so interrupt me whenever. But I dealt with my own set of anxiety and OCD because of my upbringing and hadn't really dealt with those things the right way. And my therapist was keen to just give me medications like, citalopram and Klonopin and gabapentin and Adderall and all those things just to mask the symptoms I was having. And I tried to get off those medications dozens of times and I could never do it. But after 2 days using this product, I was off all those meds and it's been almost 2.5 years. And my life's forever changed because of it. So after trying that and seeing it happen and be kind of a miracle in my life, I was like, okay, this is the real deal. And here we are today as a company. So we just went live in January, and that's where we're at.
And I like that. The fact that, like you said, in my world, I am trying to change my world because of the gifts that I have been given within prosthesis and such. And I did not know your backstory until just now.
Oh,
And that in itself, and maybe that was just subconsciously on my side, that I felt the connection that day we met also.
yeah.
And I was sitting there trying out the product, and I only tried it for, maybe 10 minutes. It wasn't that long. But again, my whole aspect is we're all different. We all heal differently and stuff. Getting the word out there of options that are available to us to help make the world a better place. So, with that, let's describe the
The problem.
NeuroNova and how um, it is. I mean, it's cool. I loved it, and um, then ways of how people can get the product also.
Okay. So it's a chair. It looks like a stool. And what I tried to envision, because when we were in the lab, it would look like Frankenstein trying to figure everything out. And my vision for this is have it to look like a stool that Apple Computer maybe would make, just kind of like futuristic a little bit. And we're getting there. But as I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about the history of the product, 80 hertz is a very, very fast wave. And when we were experimenting on small mammals, we would rig up their spine with this machine that could administer the 80 hertz wave into the spine, no problem. But that doesn't work so well in humans. We can't do that. And so, um, what you're experiencing on the chair is you're getting about 25 hertz on one side and then 25 and a half on the other side. And those two waves combine in your spine and create a third wave, a beat frequency wave. And that's what travels up and down your spine. And using those lower frequency waves produce enough displacement that it allowed us to overlay that third 80 hertz wave and create that. Think about your spine like a tuning fork is basically what it's doing. I don't know if you remember that. Uh,
Yeah,
and it's at about 7 minutes in, your brain will produce dopamine and it'll reduce GABA. And that lasts So the dopamine in your brain should increase for about 2.5 hours, and then it kind of will taper off a little bit for 6 to 9 hours. But you get a stacking effect after 10 uses where your baseline level of dopamine has been now increased. So it takes about 10 sessions after that. It's important to note that dopamine isn't the feel-good chemical, it's the neurotransmitter, it's the learning neurotransmitter. And so what you're essentially doing is getting your brain primed so it's in a state where it can change. And so where that was really helpful for me with my struggles of anxiety and OCD was I would pair right after a treatment, I would pair that with a meditation or something positive that my therapist gave me. But it basically put me in a state where I could move past some of the traumas that I'd had in my life. Because I just felt stuck. If you have PTSD, you're just stuck. Um, so that's kind of how it works. And then to get the product, we have a website. We have a ton of demand right now. So our biggest challenge has been inventory. So, but you can hop on there and pre-order, and we should be able to get you a chair within 1 to 2 months. Um, but yeah, you can find us on neuronovaco.com.
And I will put the link in the show notes. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I love that aspect because us that are dealing with these different things, PTSD, anxiety, and all, we have a tendency of that stacking the bad. And they call it neuroplasticity. We're overlaying it. And our thoughts are always to what we're thinking about the most. And so, yeah, I love that aspect of it creates the dopamine to teach yourself to learn something new, is basically what you're saying there. Correct?
Yeah, a new way of thinking about your past, or well, I guess maybe it'd be really helpful for me because um I haven't lost a limb. I have no idea what that must be like. Talk to me about, I think maybe we talked before this call a little bit about um you most of what we do is so subconscious that when you lose an arm or a hand, all of a sudden everything is much more tasking because you're having to learn new way of doing things. Is that right?
Yes, it is. And it's so I look at it this way also, depending upon your age at the loss, um, you have all these memories. In my case, I was 53 years old when I had my accident and lost my fingers. So I got 53 years of memories of how I did things. And, before the accident, you just did things. You just rolled with the punches, did life, and everything was good. Now, to be brutally honest, life is never been perfect for anybody. But then you go through the trauma, and you got the trauma of the accident, and then you got the trauma of the new life and changing things. On the finger partial hand side of things, I'm still trying to do as much as I can with my right hand. I have two fingers, but I'm missing three. And I have very limited touch sensation with what is left there. And then you put the prosthesis on and it covers up some of that touch sensation. So I have to rely on other senses when I'm trying to do tasks, and going from that subconscious to conscious. I call it monkey brain because I'm flipping back and forth
It
all
must be
day.
exhausting.
It is. It's mentally fatiguing, and people don't realize all of that. Anytime you have a challenge, it takes brain bandwidth to work through those challenges. And like in your case, it was mentally. You were getting abused, your father was hard on you and everything. So it was taking up again mental bandwidth doing all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it just starts stacking on itself, right? And taking up more space in your head. And so we need to work on changing that and reframing and learning new things. And the cool thing, and to, so you sit on the stool and it has a timer on it,
Uh-huh.
and go through describing that aspect of it to the audience.
Okay. Just how to turn it on and everything.
Yeah, is it a preset time,
Yeah.
or can you adjust the times and how often
Yeah. Good,
people can
good.
do it and all of that?
So it's a preset time of 10 minutes. Um, and that's because you're you should get the dopamine around 7 minutes in. So we add 3 minutes to like for good measure, but your dopamine increase will will happen, for 2.5 hours after that. And so it doesn't necessarily make sense to do longer than 10 minutes. And it doesn't make sense to do sessions shorter than in 3 hour increments. But what we generally tell people is just once in the morning, once in the evening. That's what I do, at least. But yeah, it's really easy. Just turn it on and hit quick start, and it'll do a 10-minute session for you. I recommend listening to a meditation while you're on it, just kind of zone in. But you do need to make sure you sit up as straight as you can because it's sending a beat frequency through your spine. And if you slouch a little bit, it still works, but you don't get the not 100% of the effect because the wave can't go all the way through.
And I like that within my own struggles and stuff and overcoming my challenges. One thing that I have learned, and going back to that neuroplasticity stuff, so many times we go to bed, and as we're laying there in bed waiting to fall asleep, we're thinking about the bills, whatever happened that day, our struggles. So then we are sleeping with our last thoughts of the day and those struggles, and we start neural stacking all those things on. And first thing we do when we wake up in the morning is take off again on that neural stacking. So I have in my own practices and stuff, I say my prayers, count my blessings, and put on meditation every night. And I go to sleep. And, that has made such a big change in my life in lowering my pain level. And I think it goes back to that neural stacking a little bit, going to sleep, thinking about pain, and waking up thinking about pain. I live with pain 24/7, and it
Talk to me about
increased.
that. Is it due to your accident or?
It is. My fingers were pulled off. And so, like just this last week here in Utah, we had the storm coming through. And my hand is a very good barometer telling me when a storm is coming. The
Crazy.
day before the storm hit, one of my protocols is heat, the calming effects of heat and stuff. And maybe that's something to add to the chair down the road. Um, Warm your buns up a little bit. But I put a heated mitten on. And the day before this last storm, I wore my heated mitten for almost 2 hours that day. And it's just that craziness. You know,
You're
sometimes I'm sitting there thinking, did I smack my hand today? Did I do something to create that pain? But then you sit and think about things. No, uh, it's a
you're
storm coming.
you're a human meteorologist.
Uh, I am, and I bet if I
You'd be
put
more
it
accurate
down
than we are.
100%.
Yeah,
It's so funny because, yeah, how many times do they say there's a storm coming and nothing
yeah,
happens?
you could have told them that.
And I, it's crazy because I see it more in the transitions, fall to winter, winter to spring. The the transitions where we get those thunder bursts and stuff like that. That the pain level is a lot more. Um, in
Hmm.
the heat of winter, I'll get the storms and stuff, and it, it, they don't hit as often. But if it's again a big storm coming, oh yeah, I know it's coming, and I can prepare.
So back to the stacking thing. What I start to do, so from the study, we saw significant benefits with insomnia, and I track my sleep with this Aura ring. It used to take me 2.5 hours to fall asleep, sometimes less. Long time. Now my latency is about 17 to 23 minutes. Life changing. I mean, I used to
Oh,
lay in bed and just roll around and worry and all this stuff. So what I do in my nighttime routine is I'll do a session on the chair and then I write on my notebook three wins from that day, like what three things that went well that day, and then three things that are gonna be wins for me the next day. It's just a nice little just reinforcement because then that's the last thing I remember before I fall asleep is, the wins for the day and then the wins I was going to have the next day. But talking about pain management, this is kind of interesting because I didn't realize, and hopefully this isn't insensitive, but I didn't realize that even after the accident, there's lifetime of pain. Do you ever get like phantom pain too?
and I um, talk to mine as two different things. I have the pain that I live with, and then I call it phantom sensation because I still at times feel fingers and things like that. And it's kind of crazy. I'm very active and work out and do things. And after intense workouts and stuff, everything's kind of hypersensitive at that point in time. And at times, that's when the sensation is very hypersensitive at the time. And I notice, I'm dating myself, and I say this frequently. Um, at the time of my accident, I was polishing, holding on to something, and my most frequent one, I call it ET go home. The finger sitting out, and my index finger, it feels like it's in this position, just sitting out there, pointing in to the air. And it, again, is just interesting. And I love what you just described, how you journal a little bit and take the positives to reframe. Now, I just started wearing a competitive thing. I wear the Whoop
Yeah.
band that tracks things, and I haven't started dialing in. I see my sleep patterns and stuff and get my protocols each day. And mine, I don't know if Aura is this way. Mine literally is tracking my activity and stuff through the day. And it
Yeah.
tells me what time I should be going to bed
Yeah,
at night.
I have a Whoop as well. I haven't been wearing it, but I like it a lot.
Yeah. And, you know, I start looking at that and putting down, you know, what time I do lay down in bed and see where my sleep cycles start changing. Um, so right now, you just sell online, basically. Um, what is the future look like? What are your goals and ramping up production and stuff?
Yeah.
What are production like?
Yeah, so I should have 1,000 units in the next 2 months, which would be great. And then of course we'll put in another order. Fortunately, by luck, I ended up choosing a manufacturing partner here in the US, so we didn't have to deal with some of the tariffs. Because I mean we were this
Yeah.
close, working with China. Really glad I didn't. So my ultimate goal is that, anybody on the planet could have one of these in their home, to help with their self-regulation and, pain management and some of those things. I think Western medicine is really, really important. And, I think in some cases, medication is, something that needs to happen. But in general cases, those things are just masking symptoms and prolonging you so you can figure out what the real problem is, and then you go and try to find the root cause. The problem is with Western medicine, we forgot the second part. We're not like going to back to the
Yeah.
root cause of, what's causing some of that. So yeah, my ultimate goal is that everyone can have one at their house. And if not that, that we're in, every medical spa or physical therapy clinic in the US so that, people have access to this, similar to, with like a hyperbaric chamber.
And I think that's cool. I do, I call them brain dumps, but every other week I meet with a trauma counselor and going over things. And I kind of joked with him this last visit last week that he needs one in his office. It'll be the holy grail for
Hey,
his
line them up with
practice.
me. Line up with me. I mean, so in our current clinical settings, that's really the protocol is people sit on it before they visit with their therapist, because think about it. If you can go into those sessions with your brain primed for change, for healing, for all those things, every minute you spend with that therapist is just going to be that much more effective. We're not, we didn't design our product to like replace anything. It was just to make everything else that much more effective. And that's the point of the product. It's not necessarily to replace anything. In fact, with talk therapy in general, this isn't necessarily a criticism. This is just the reality that, most people see their therapist for 30 years and see marginal improvement. And, therapists still get paid, right? Um, what and what if we paired that with something to help them be that much more effective? Because they don't want that. They want their patients to get better. What if we paired that with something that's help those sessions be more effective so that we're healing and not needing that anymore, potentially, right?
I agree with that 100% in the fact that um, everyone's looking for the magic pill, basically.
Yeah.
And again, we're all different, but what by looking at different modalities, we can find what works for each one of us. It might be the chair and this, or, these two things. But again, I've learned on my side of things since I have started working on the positive side of things, and I intend on getting a chair, and we'll talk offline
Yeah.
about things and figure out how we can do this. Oh, potentially one last question, because I have a time restraint coming
Yeah.
up. Is it approved FDA, HSA type applications there?
We are currently in phase 2 clinical trials taking it through the FDA, so we don't quite have a CPT code yet. Um, as far as HSA is concerned, I believe there are ways where you can utilize that. Great
Okay.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Again, I got time restraint today, but we will talk further ourselves behind the scenes. And I love the technology and want to have more discussion, follow you more, and help to launch. I believe in the product completely. Just like you said before, I had no clue of your backstory there.
Yeah.
And you jumped on the bandwagon because of your backstory. And so, with that, you know, thank you so much, Tom,
Yeah.
for being with us today. And this story is not over yet. We will be following it
Oh,
and
good.
helping to launch it.
I'm grateful that I could be, have this discussion with you today and that for the community that you've built for people that need this and thinking about, I have no idea what it must be like to kind of go through what you've been through and just building that community of other people just so I just think that's so cool. So congratulations on what you built. You should be so proud of that.
Thank you. And that's what it is. I live by the statement, we don't know what we don't know. I haven't walked in your shoes and you haven't walked in my shoes, but we need to have more empathy and compassion for each other and helping each other through our own challenges rather than the suck up boy. Um, Come on,
Yeah.
Buttercup. We need to have the love and compassion to help everyone, because if your brother had had a little more love and compassion, his life would have been a lot better. So, with
100%.
that, thank you, Tom, and we will talk again soon.
All right. Take care, Jeff.